So my background is not in commercial real estate, nor is it in real estate in general. When I graduated, my background was in pharmacy, so I kind of was driven to the medical world a little bit. But I have sort of another background. I had a baby in high school, and so plans for my life, the trajectory just changed. And so I was working as well as going to school. And so plans for pharmacy school just kind of got stuck to the back burner. So medical, I was able to work wherever we went. And so it was just a great path for me, and it allowed me to serve people. And so by serving people, I just kind of had that passion for people.
So you worked in the medical field,
I did.
Even though you didn't go to pharmacy school and
Correct.
stuff?
Yep. So I worked as a pharmacy tech for 12 plus years. And anywhere we moved, I was always able to find a job. So it was job security, as well as I was very good at serving customers, and I loved that part of the pharmacy. So when we moved, my husband and I got married, we moved and had a baby. I waited 10 years, so there's a big gap for my kids. And so when we moved to Cheyenne for an opportunity to grow, I started working for the state. But at the same time, I was working kind of part-time hours. At the same time, I joined multi-level marketing. So marketing was a way for me to be able to be home with my kids and make extra income.
And so you waited to get into marketing until you moved to Cheyenne?
Nope. So I started that before.
Gotcha.
And moved up the ladder really fast.
Gotcha.
And continued that when I was here. I got big into fitness, CrossFit, and so I kind of tried to keep whatever I was selling with the path of my life. So I sold activewear, and it really didn't really matter what I was selling. If I was really passionate about it, I liked to sell, and it worked for me. It was able to work for a time because I could do it at home with the kids. And so I started to gain a following here in Cheyenne on social media. And through that, I was able to climb through the company really fast, make a pretty good income, but still loved my hours here at the state. So I was like basically getting the best of both worlds.
Yeah, that's super cool.
And so I remember being at a trap shoot, and my husband and I were in a league together, and Rob Graham happened to be at one of the trap shoots that we were at, and I had just kind of asked the question, is the real estate market saturated? Could there be any room for real estate agents? And I will never forget him saying that 90% of real estate is sold by 10% of agents.
And what year was this again?
So this was 3 years ago. Yeah, so this was pretty recent.
And
so
when did you
this
guys move to Cheyenne?
2021. So we've been here 5 years. And so that was, I'm terrible at doing quick math in my head right now. So that was 2019. So yeah, about 2018, 2019 is when we moved.
And where did you come from?
So I live in Wheatland, or I'm from Wheatland, excuse me. So that's my background. I was born and raised in Wheatland, and then kind of moved all over in my first marriage. And then when I came home, we lived in Rollins for a while because my husband was a head football coach.
Gotcha.
So we wanted better opportunities for our kids and just wanted
To get out of Rollins.
Yeah. My husband's a Cheyenne native, loves Cheyenne. So this is where he was born and raised, and has a huge passion for Cheyenne specifically, and just loved being here. And it was close to my family, so it was a win-win. Yeah.
That's good to hear. Most people, when I say I like being in Cheyenne, they think I'm weird or stupid.
I think it's just, we're a big outdoorsy family, so we miss that aspect of being able to drive down the road and go to a lake or go hiking. You have to do a little bit of driving. But I will tell you, now looking back, it was the best move we ever made.
Yeah.
Just because of the opportunity that is here for all sorts of realms of
Yeah, Cheyenne being a hub in like every sense of the word for like business or travel or fun. That's like it's not close to anything, but it's close to everything.
It's like the center, and 45 minutes is kind of like you draw a circle around, and you could go literally anywhere and do something in 45 minutes.
Yeah, and then you make that like a 3-hour circle, and then you can really be like anywhere in 3 hours, like doing anything.
Yeah, so that's kind of how we ended up there. But so after I kind of soaked in that word of what Rob had said at the trap shoot, I really didn't think anything of it. And COVID started happening, and then things got weird, and everybody was trying to figure out this new norm, and people were home. And I remember, so my husband and Rob grew up together. Both, I think they're close to the same age. My husband's a little bit older. He texted him and just said, "Hey, can I have your wife's number?" And he's like, "Well, what for?" He said, "Well, I want her to come work for me." And so that was kind of it. I kind of took a leap of faith. I was pregnant at the time and had no idea. And so I was starting a completely new, venture. So I went and interviewed, had no idea what I was doing, and took my real estate class during COVID. So it was online in 10 days, took my test, and was licensed. So I was kind of like dangerous at that point because I didn't know anything. I had a license.
So did you go
No
straight
knowledge.
commercial then, right away?
Yes. So our structure was I would come to work with Rob just kind of as a partner, Rob and Ben, and they needed something that was always falling, which was marketing. And so they could see the writing on the wall that marketing was the next wave that was really missing from commercial real estate.
Right.
Residential seems to be very fluffy. There's a lot of cool things about residential, and there's a lot of really cool things about commercial if you really look hard, but on the outside shell, their buildings, office, and business can seem very boring. So to make that and take marketing and run with it was really what they were looking for. And so it took a while. It took me probably a year to get my feet wet as far as learning the business side of that. But I was also, had my license, could really learn and develop those skills through that first year. So it was very much a mentorship program for me.
That's cool. So did you ever do any residential?
I did. Yep. Actually, my first residential sale was a Wheatland listing that took probably 6 months to sell. But it was a friend and family, which was great. So I got to learn and do those things. I had zero idea how to do a listing. So it was great. It was a learning experience for sure. And it was extra income for me. So I was able to do that a little bit. That never really was the goal, though. It was always to learn commercial real estate, which as a woman who likes pretty things and houses, it was kind of like, oh, this is kind of boring, but I can see it.
So were you at the state doing the marketing stuff and doing the real estate stuff?
Nope. So I quit my job at the state and went to work for Rob full time.
Gotcha.
And it was totally a leap of faith because, I didn't have insurance. I had to make sure that, my family was taken care of. My husband at that time is in oil and gas. And so it was a little scary because that was kind of on the fence. And so he was contract employee as well. We were still trying to sell our house in Rollins. So we were still living with his in-laws, or with my in-laws, with his parents at the time. So that was it was just very interesting. We just kind of, looking back now, if my kids ever tried to do that, I would tell them they are nuts. But with great risk comes great reward. And so I think sometimes people are so scared to jump into something they don't know. The unknown is scarier than the known, and it just worked out great.
It seems like it's working out.
Yes. There have been so many learning curves through this process, but I will say that I've tried to do them gracefully, and working where I work is amazing because you just have a great support system. So that's really important in real estate, to have a great support system, and I feel like we as a team do that really well. So.
Right. Because you're at Caldwell, but you're in the Graham group, and so there's 5 of you in the Graham group?
There is. It started out it started out way before me, and hopefully I'll be able to have Rob and Ben on here so they can kind of give us some history before I was a part of it. But when I came on, Ben Troutwine and Rob Graham were the Graham group. And so they were partners in commercial real estate, needed some marketing. And so I think the goal was to always train somebody else to be in sales as well. And so the marketing grew that, and it became very apparent that we needed more help, which is great. So we brought on Lexi Leckenby, who will be our next, we'll be interviewing her at some point. And then we also brought in a transaction coordinator, Morgan Eichster. And they have just been a great addition. And it was awesome for me because it was an addition of 2 women, which was great. Yeah. But it's very hard to find a team that works collectively very well together, that just understands their roles and just does that seamlessly. And I feel like we've done a really good job of that.
Yeah, it seems like I have only I've spent the most time with you, obviously.
Sure.
But Seems like the way you talk about it, you guys all get along well.
Yeah, we do. I think there's always a fine line of, work and friendship. And I think we all do a really good job of towing that line and making sure that there's a little bit of both in there, but that we also have some breaks and stuff. Sure. I feel like we also have a great, I shouldn't say I know we have a great brokerage that supports us as well. I feel like that's very important. There's some great brokerages in town, but I can only speak on ours because I've only been at Coldwell Banker. Right. We are a national brand, so we gain a lot of support and exposure from being a national company. And so our franchise here specifically has had some changes over the last couple of years and has really supported, I feel like, our agents well. So it's allowed us to grow.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yes, we are all licensed agents. Yeah, so we all have a different role, and I feel like a lot of them overlap and mesh as well. We all could be, we're all individuals as far as real estate license go. We all are individual contractors that work together as a team, and so we kind of split up. But the great thing that we always pitch to our clients is if you can't get a hold of one of us, you've got a team of 5 working on your behalf. And so that has been awesome. So like if they want to go take a vacation, usually there's 2 of us there and we just pick up the slack and vice versa. Yeah, so it doesn't matter whose listing is what, which is great. That's part of a team aspect, and we're all very understanding of, how those roles work financially, how those roles work in time as well. And so kind of honing that in has been awesome.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, so it was Rob, Ben, you, Lexi, Morgan. And so Rob Graham, right? So he kind of started it with Ben.
Yep.
And so I was just going to go through starting with Morgan is where I was going with that, was everyone's kind of roles, because you're running the marketing.
So I run marketing, and then I also run sales as well. Yes, and then Morgan does most of our transaction coordinating, as well as she does sales in some residential, and then she does a lot of back-end things that people don't see. So she does back-end books, and I'll have her on too so she can explain completely extensively. Sometimes we don't know all the things we do. We just know that all the wheels are working at one time, and so it works great. And Lexi she works on syndications, she works on deals. She has a really awesome lending background, so she has a lot of knowledge that can help our buyers if they have questions about that, putting deals together that make sense. So I feel like as well as having our sales license, we all have a great knowledge that some of us don't have. And I think we've all taken that, and a lot of times in the team, somebody wants to be the head of this. Sure. And sometimes we love that because, she has a knowledge that I don't have, and I have a knowledge of marketing that she doesn't have. And when you put them together, they're deadly. So if you do that with 5 people, it becomes really deadly. Morgan's incredible with organization, so she keeps us all running. Tax season comes, Morgan's like, here you go. This is what you need. Yeah. So
that's super nice.
Yeah, so it's great. And then Rob and Ben have the knowledge to keep us going and to continue to lead and find new things and exciting things and take us in a bigger direction, which is awesome.
Because how long have Rob and Ben been in the real estate world?
I guess I don't know the exact number. I can tell you Rob's is over 10 years and Ben's is way longer than that. Yeah. And it's pretty cool because we'll get to see a lot of the older agents in our office, and when everybody gets together, it's almost like the good old boys club, and they all just sit and have coffee, and I love to sit and just listen. It's like having coffee at the Wheatland Inn in Wheatland and listen to all the old farmers come in and chat. It's pretty cool. So it's just a trickle effect, and everybody's been able to stay connected, which is great.
That is cool.
Yeah, really neat. So I feel like our group, sometimes people don't know those different roles, and sometimes we don't know those different roles. All we know is all of us are working at one time, usually on everything, just in different forms. But the hope was that with a team that big, that we would do more volume.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that's worked.
Yes, that has worked.
Are you thinking of expanding the team more?
We've talked about it. We have some big projects that, we've considered doing that with. I think that it's something that's been thrown around, but it's also something that, we've been able to handle what we have now. I think eventually as time changes and roles change, or maybe trajectory of people's lives change, that could be the case. But right now, I think we're pretty good with what we've got going on. But we also know that if we're going to grow, sometimes you've got to have more. So we've also looked at VA assistance, online things to help. I think that's the wave, is all this paperwork that you drowned in. So I think we've looked at, other resources to make things more, we have systems in place, but to systemize them even more. So
it's kind of crazy the amount of stuff you can do now with like virtual assistants and hiring people that live far away, and they do their job well and they help you out.
Yes.
I think it's cool.
Our marketing has really shifted and changed even since when I have come to the table. So what's great about our company, and then the Graham Group specifically, is we have marketing within our company. But if you want to do anything very individualized, that's usually a requirement of yourself. And I think a lot of people, if you invest in yourself, you'll see so much more reward. And so we truly believe in that. And so that was their hope for the marketing, which worked. And so then we kind of set the tone for what was new and improved out there, and then people follow. And so then you got to be on the forefront of the next big thing. And so we're trying to do that. At some point, there's always going to be something new and, shiny. And if it works, don't fix it. Or if it's not broke, don't fix it. But we always want to make sure that we're providing the most for our clients, but we also try to track those changes in marketing. And if it works and you are seeing, not really money out of it, but if you're seeing that it works well, then we'll continue to do it. But if it's something that didn't work really well, we will trial run it and then decide that it just isn't worth our time.
Yeah, I appreciate the amount of effort you guys put into the marketing. Like, for example, the testimonial videos, when you sell a building or work with other businesses or whatever, and then interview them to show how it's worked and the whole process and everything. I think it's cool to tell that quick story.
Yeah. Our best, one of the very first projects that we did, big projects, was the Pioneer Block Project. And that was a project where the old Pioneer Printing Building, where Blacktooth and Cheyenne CrossFit and Trophy Creative are now, was one building where Pioneer Printing used to be. So that was a transaction that had passed and gone, but we there was still a story there that nobody really, in real estate, sometimes you see buildings turn over to the next owners and you don't really know the history. And so it was a chance for us to tell the community what the history behind the building was, and then showcase the new businesses that were here for the community.
Right. And that was a cool project because they took one big building and then split it up. And I know that they all, they share a building, but they're all like neighbors, in that building. And I think that works really well. I think that was cool, taking one business building and then bringing 3 new companies into it.
And that was all Ben and Rob. Yeah. So that is what's great about having the knowledge and the background and just the experience, is knowing, seeing a potential building and what could be, just based off of what's worked in the past and then what's new and upcoming. So they talked a lot about that in the project, and Jerry did too, who was the previous owner, that was really their idea and they brought it to life.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm, yep. And, because I think his plan was to just sell the whole building, and by being able to demise it and bring 3 new businesses, it really helped them and helped him as well. So
did you guys, with that Pioneer Building project, did the previous owner go through and then split up the building, or did you guys help with that to make it suitable for the 3 different setups?
Sure. I don't know specifically for that building. That's a question that we can ask Rob and Ben, because it's a project that they did. But typically, We do a little bit of consulting for the clients to kind of let them know and help them through the process. But yeah, if it was one building, my guess is they went through and had that conversation with Jerry, the owner, and then, those costs and development, because you have to go through, the development process with the city, was probably either a conversation with the tenants or landlord. And that is knowledge that they had through experience. And so that's what I've been learning. That's probably my newest thing that I'm learning about is development and those processes. Because it's not just, hey, we split the building in 3 and sell it. You gotta go through all the hoops. Yeah. Yes. And so my guess is that was something that they helped with.
Yeah, I'll be interested to hear how that played out, because I know that was a huge project, because that was like 2017, 2018.
Again, it was before I came in, but it was still fresh enough that we could, that the businesses were new. We were able to shoot in Blacktooth. I guess we shot in all 3 spaces, and their storefronts were really modern. But something I can speak on is an industrial building that we just did that with. So we were able to help an owner take an 85,000 square foot warehouse and split it into what would be 4 potential tenants, and monetize that even more. So, and then help businesses get into spaces that were not as large. So it was a win-win for tenants as well as landlord or investors. And that is something that we did help with. We don't necessarily, there are projects that this has happened where they do get really involved, but they're kind of 2 separate roles as far as a real estate consultant and then also construction development. And so they've done both. It just depends on the project and what they're asked to do. So
cool.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that I think the commercial stuff, especially like going through a smidgen of the process of getting into it.
Yeah.
Myself, since we're just going to get our first office space, which is super fun.
Yeah.
I think it's super cool, like the downtown atmosphere and like what you guys have done, breaking up buildings into multiple tiny businesses or maybe one big business or whatever. But residential is cool and all, but I find a lot of excitement in like the commercial stuff, because then it's always like new businesses are coming in, and if you have a business, you can look for different office spaces or whatever. But I just remember when the Pioneer Building brought Blacktooth in, and it was like a huge deal, because that was like one of Cheyenne's first like actual breweries, and everyone was so excited. It's like stuff like that that's like super exciting in the commercial space.
It's just as exciting in our world too. Commercial real estate, the conversations are just different. They are really fun and intelligent. Not saying that residential isn't. It's just on a different scale. Very business mind, like it's exciting to see the new potential that Cheyenne could have. There's some projects you get really excited about and then they just fail, and that's hard. But I think that there is so much potential for Cheyenne, and Cheyenne's really invested in their downtown specifically, that it's been really fun to just be a part of that process. Plenty of, I feel like it's a very big relationship building too, getting to know specifically, I'm just going to use you as an example, without even knowing that you were looking for commercial space. It's a business that we're pursuing for an avenue that we're trying to do, and it's just making those connections and those relationships, and you would be surprised at how many people you really truly know within the commercial real estate industry. It's really cool.
That is cool. I think that's fun. Yeah, I think that because it's such a business-oriented deal, commercial is, I think that's why I find it very exciting and fascinating,
Yeah, absolutely. And the nice thing about businesses is they know what works for them. Like, you don't have to be an expert on their business. You get to know what their requirements are, and they're usually pretty specific. So you can really hone in on what they're looking for. Sometimes I feel like, just because I've done a little bit of both, when you look for a house, you have this image of what you want, and that goes along with what you can and can't do with a lender or cash. And then sometimes it's a hard thing to break up with because what your payments say you can do isn't what your mind has envisioned for your home. And so same with business, but they are okay with, like, they've already got that specific requirement. So usually it's very easy to find them space. And if it doesn't work, then it just doesn't work. And whereas residential, that can be a hard thing to swallow.
Well, yeah, and residential too. I mean, you can go look at 5 or 10 houses, as many as you can in a day, and just be like, yeah, none of these really vibe with me. Yeah. And then sometimes you just go find one. Like when I bought my house, it was like, I like this house. I'm going to put in an offer. Yeah. And then, but I understand what you're saying with commercial spaces is even getting our space. It was like, we know exactly what we need, what we don't. Yeah. And then it makes it much simpler.
Yeah, it works on paper. It works for your business. It's what you can afford and what you need specifically. And if you just can't find it, then you just wait till you can find it. There are situations where timing is everything too. You know, a lot of businesses come to town and need stuff right away. And so it's a temporary space. There's just so many different things than residential. And while I love commercial, I still do really like residential. You know, I love seeing new house builds. Those are super exciting, seeing things that are here in Cheyenne that we don't normally have. So I still think there's a very, really exciting realm. I think something that changed for me internally is that I just can't do everything. Sure. Although I would love to, I just have to, that's something in my 3rd year now in real estate. You kind of figure out pretty quickly that you trade time for money. And while that's great, sometimes things can slip through the cracks, like your social life or your home life. And so one thing that was a huge driver for me was just time management. And that came with doing one thing. So we got pretty specific, and that's not said for everybody. There's a lot of people that do both, but for me specifically, it was a change that I needed to make.
And I mean, especially you guys have little ones now and stuff too.
Yes. Yeah, so it was a tough decision, but it was a good one.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and it allows me to do things like this. Like this was a huge goal of ours last year, and we just didn't get it done because time and, you know, it's just a lack of time or too many things or just spread too thin. And I think that there is value in setting realistic goals and really sticking to those. And the power of no is it's real.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot to be said about the timing of things. Because, I mean, last year for your guys' group, for us as like producing this, who knows if it could have worked out for either. Sure. But now it's like, it's perfect timing. It's like great, and it works out awesome.
Yes. Yep, we as a group, you know, we sit down usually every year and have those conversations on where we want to go. And even though we're all 5 individuals, we do all have one big goal. You know, it's obviously to retire and go to the beach in 2 years. Just kidding. But it is funny how all of our goals are very aligned. Getting there looks different for everybody, but for us specifically, it's pretty cool to see all of those things come. And tracking goals too, like having goals that you can measure is super important for us. So that was just one thing to just relieve some time and be able to do fun things like this.
Yeah, so, I mean, we talked about getting the podcast going. And we also talked about how some people would think, I can't give up my secrets. I can't tell people what I know because then they'll do it.
Sure.
But you guys are in a different category, kind of, because of you got a pretty good leg up on competition and years of knowledge and all that stuff. So what's your thought behind starting the podcast, giving out free information? Like, why do you guys want to do that?
Sure. I think for us, especially myself, I may be speaking only for myself out of the group because I'm not the youngest anymore, but I am one of the younger ones. We are just evolving so much as the internet gets bigger. You've got TikTok, you've got all these avenues to find information. And it's really simple as putting in a search engine and you can find those nuggets. And we want to be able to say, we have those nuggets, but we can back up those by showing you what we've done and experience. And I think when you work with someone who has the experience to back up what they're saying, it makes you feel so much more comfortable to work with those clients and build those relationships because there's a level of trust there. And so while we will never give away all of our secrets, we really want to share experiences and things that we can do to help our clients achieve their goals in real estate, specifically commercial and real estate, and, you know, showcase all the the experience and the knowledge that we have within the team. And so we're hoping through this podcast that we'll be able to do that and talk about things that probably nobody knows about. Kind of like the Pioneer Printing Building. It was a way to showcase, the skills that Rob and Ben had to split the space in and bring 3 new businesses for the community. I think there's a lot of companies out there that do that for Cheyenne that we just probably don't even know about. So we're excited to be able to share some of our experiences and some nuggets along the way.
And so I think that you guys have enough useful information that it won't be specifically, Cheyenne area. You guys have a lot of years of experience where, people can tune into this who are in the commercial space, real estate space, all over, and get information from it as well.
Yeah, so there's a lot of categories within commercial real estate, multifamily, industrial, office space, retail, and we feel like we've done enough of just about every category that we could give somebody who's an outside listener some information on and apply that to their area in any of those categories. We feel like we have really driven the commercial real estate here in Cheyenne. And so we're hoping that listeners locally and not locally will get something out of this that they can, take with them, either working with us or a project they've been wanting to do. And maybe there's something they didn't know that they could achieve by doing, funding or grants, which are really cool. There's a lot of grant money out there to do projects that people would never think of doing because they don't have those kinds of funds. Ben's going to be a really cool speaker when it comes to those things because he has done whole parks around grant money.
Oh, wow.
And getting those establishes for businesses that are coming to town. And so that's really cool as a developer that probably people don't know about. So we're excited. We see a lot of growth happening in Cheyenne right now. We're excited to talk about that and talk about our experience, and hopefully somebody gets some knowledge from it.
Yeah, I think you guys have a lot of knowledge, and I think it's cool. Because everyone wants to be in the real estate game, even if they're not like an agent.
Yeah.
They want to be an investor or have a rental property or something. So I think that thinking commercial is different than a lot of people think. A lot of people are thinking get an Airbnb or get, a single family long-term lease, whatever. But commercial is definitely a bigger deal. But I think it's not everyone even thinks about it,
Yeah, there's so many classes within the real estate market. So it's really fun to be able to say, we've worked with investors in the industrial market, in the multifamily that have apartment complexes, or a house that they've turned into a duplex for an Airbnb. So we've seen a little bit of everything. I would say my favorite is probably retail and industrial. Office space doesn't really do it for me. I really get jazzed about industrial, which I don't know why. It's probably something I've done the most. But the warehouses are probably the most boring part of that, but they're really, the clients are really neat. So you get to see, it's no secret that we have a bunch of Microsoft facilities around Cheyenne. And so we've been able to meet really cool contractors and clients that we've made really great relationships with, and have been able to help them find space here in Cheyenne. So those connections are really neat. That's turned into some property management for us too. So I do a little bit of property managing for those clients. And so you gain a relationship with those tenants. And it's just neat. They're coming from all over. So it's cool to see those businesses grow here.
Yeah, and I like that too. As I think one of my favorite things being in the real estate and media business, real estate media and other media, is just meeting people, whether it's one-off, you show up at someone's house to do some stuff and you find out their story and they're from Cheyenne and then they own a business or whatever, and then getting connected with people just from your business, meeting everyone in the area slowly. But you do. You slowly meet kind of everyone, which is cool.
Well, if you live in Wyoming, it's one long road. Yeah.
And so I think that's cool about Cheyenne too, is your connections you can make pretty easy, even if you're only here for a couple of years.
Yep. We just put a client into a warehouse. They're getting ready to leave town, and they ended up staying, and we made a relationship with the manager, and they were looking for grass-fed beef. And so it was like I got to connect them with my family, and they were able to buy beef from my family. So just making relationships like that is really cool. And we really thrive ourselves on making sure that we have that client relationship. For sure.